It's time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with Florence Villeminot. Hi, Flo.
Hey, Jeannie.
So happy to have you back. You are just back from maternity leave. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And why not start with a new French Connections where you tell us what it's like to have a baby in France?
Well, I figured I'd try to get my baby brain back to speed by talking about something I know, but before I start, I really want to thank my colleague Solange Mougin, who did such a great job while I was away, and I loved binge-watching her shows, including a recent show she did on France's traditionally high fertility rate, which has been dropping. According to the National Institute for Statistics, 678,000 babies were born in France in 2023, including mine, and that is the lowest number of births since the Second World War. Now, despite the drop, France actually remains one of the better performers within the European Union.
Now, one of the secrets to France's fertility performance is its healthcare system, of course. Not only is it considered one of the best in the world, it's also very generous.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to medical expenses, having a baby isn't as costly as in other countries like, say, the United States, and you're really well accompanied all along the way. From the moment you find out you're pregnant, you get almost monthly checkups, and you get at least 3 ultrasounds, and all of this is reimbursed by Sécurité, sociale, France's healthcare system. It also throws in a free dental checkup, and from the 6th month of your pregnancy, 6 months into your pregnancy onwards, all medical visits are 100% free, and you don't have to pay anything up front.
And a lot of these meetings take place with a very special medical professional here called a sage-femme.
That's right. It's a little-known profession abroad, and quite frankly, here in France as well, even though it's been around since the Middle Ages, and it's our word du jour, sage-femme. Now, sage-femme literally translates as wise woman, and it's often, translated as a midwife. And what's really interesting about this word is that the profession of sage-femme is if you're a man and you're doing this profession, you're still called a sage-femme. Now, men have been able to do this job since the 1980s, and they represent about 3% of the 23,000 sage-femmes in France.
I had a sage-femme.
I did too.
Oh, there you go. All right, so these sage-femmes are actually really heroes without capes, you might say.
That's right. As long as you don't have a complicated pregnancy, sage-femmes will really help you every step of the way into your pregnancy. They monitor the progression of things, essentially. They help you get ready for the big day with birthing classes, which are, once again, free because they're reimbursed by the healthcare system. And then on D-Day, if everything goes smoothly, chances are it's a sage-femme who will deliver your baby.
Je pense que l'équipe de l'accouchement, on l'oubliera jamais. C'est vraiment un moment qu'on a partagé ensemble et on est resté toute la soirée ensemble. Je pense que oui, le lien là, à ce moment-là, il s'est créé.
Now, here in France, home births are actually pretty uncommon. They can be arranged, though. But culturally, the vast majority of births in France actually happen in the hospital. People usually stay about 3 days. How much does all that cost?
Well, it depends on where you give birth. If you give birth in a public hospital, it costs on average 2,600 euros, which isn't very much compared to other countries.
That you don't pay.
But you don't have to pay for any of the medical procedures because they are 100% covered by Sécurité, sociale. The only thing that you have to pay for are extra perks, like if you want a TV in your room, or if you want a private room, or an extra bed in your room. If you give birth in a private clinic, which is also possible, it might cost you a little bit more because they charge a little bit more for all these things, but it will never break your bank, essentially.
Right, and this postnatal care continues well after your delivery.
That's right. In the first days when you get home, a sage-femme, once again, will come to your home and check up on you and your baby. And one thing that they're really looking out for more and more is postpartum depression. And you also will get sessions with a physiotherapist to tone your périnée, which is your pelvic floor muscles, which honestly I didn't even know I had until I had a baby.
It's worth doing, Flo.
It's absolutely worth doing. And speaking about the baby as well, they will get regular medical checkups within the first months of their life. And it's really weird. You go to the doctor and you leave and you don't have to pay for any of it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic system. One thing that surprised me, though, when I had my kids here was breastfeeding and the attitudes towards breastfeeding. Now, it might be a must for many Anglo mothers. Here in France, it's a little more controversial.
That's right. France actually has one of the lowest breastfeeding rates in the Western world. It's just over 50%. And women tend to stop quite early. They stop around 4 months, which is 2 months less than what's recommended by the World Health Organization. Now, this reticence to breastfeeding actually dates back centuries. For instance, in the 1600s, wealthy women hired wet nurses, les nourrices, to breastfeed their children. And then in the 1960s, feminists said it was like slavery. Now, it must be said that things really are changing. For instance, women in my generation will tend to breastfeed more than women in my mother's generation. She really had to fight to breastfeed, whereas these days it comes more naturally.
Dès qu'elle est venue au monde, on l'a mis au sein et je sais pas, ça crée un lien, c'était super sympa. C'est pas une sensation qui avait l'air toute nouvelle, inconnue, bizarre, c'était vraiment comme si je l'avais déjà fait en fait.
Now, Flo, we can't do a show about babies or children in France without talking about a definitive piece of French culture.
Sophie!
Sophie la giraffe.
Sophie la giraffe. She's a very popular teething toy for infants, and she's been made in France since 1961. Now, over 60 years later, she doesn't have a single wrinkle and is just as popular as ever. The company that makes her loves to say that she sells as many giraffes a year as babies are born, and that's not hard to believe. She really is the must gift in terms of baby gifts, and she's popular in France, but around the world as well, you'll see.
C'est très vieux, hein, parce que mes enfants, ils sont grands, donc ouais, c'est des vieux souvenirs. Hein. Mais ils en ont tous eu une. Hein. Quand j'étais petit, mes parents me l'avaient acheté, je dormais avec, je jouais avec, je faisais tout avec, j'allais même à l'école avec.
So when I see this beautiful little girl there, I think about my granddaughter. She has exactly that same toy, the little giraffe. There it is, Sophie the giraffe, right? Which is apparently the toy for little babies these days.
Now, fun fact, Sophie, Jeannie, you gave me this Sophie, and my baby loved it.
I did, and I love that you still have a little bit of baby brain, even though you're back with us, Flo. Thank you so much for that, and I was so happy to give you your first Sophie la giraffe. Don't forget, if you have any questions, any comments for Florence Villeminot, who is back with us for French Connections, be sure to reach out on social media. Thanks so much for watching France 24. Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come.